Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. In this video, I will be teaching you how to balance a chemical equation. But before we start in the tutorial on how to balance a chemical equation, here are 5 things to remember in balancing a chemical equation. First, the main goal of balancing a chemical equation is to have equal numbers of atoms on the reactant side and the product side. Second, we can only add numbers in front of the chemical formulas of each molecule to make changes in the number of atoms of each element in the chemical equation. Third, when we add a number in front of a molecule, this number is multiplied and distributed in each atom in the molecule. Fourth, the subscript indicate the number of atoms that each element in the molecules have. Fifth, we cannot change the subscripts of each element in the molecules to balance the chemical equation. Let us now start with the tutorial on the chemical balancing. Let us separate the reactant side from the product side by drawing a line right below the arrow. Then let's write the list of elements on the reactant side and on the product side. So we have chlorine, sodium, and bromine. Then copy the same pattern on the product side, chlorine, sodium, and bromine. The next, let's write the number of atoms of each element on the reactant side and on the product side. Chlorine, 2, sodium is 1, bromine is 1. On the product side, chlorine is 1, sodium is 1, and bromine is 2. Then compare the number of atoms of each element on the reactant side and on the product side. Chlorine is 2 on the reactant, 1 on the product. Sodium is both 1, bromine 1 on the reactant, 2 on the product side. Let's start manipulating the number of atoms of chlorine by adding 2 in front of NaCl. The number of chlorine now is 2, but not only the number of atoms of chlorine will be changed. This time, the number of sodium will be also equal to 2. Okay, then let's check now. Chlorine is balanced. Sodium is 1 on the reactant, 2 on the product. Bromine is 1 on the reactant and 2 on the product. We have to write 2 in front of NaBr to change the number of sodium to 2 and the number of bromine to 2. Then let's check if each element on the reactant side and on the product side is already balanced. Chlorine, 2 on the reactant, 2 on the product. Sodium is 2 on the reactant, 2 on the product, and bromine is 2 on the reactant and 2 on the product. Therefore, this is the balanced equation. Next problem. Again, separate the reactant side from the product side. Write all the elements. Phosphorus, oxygen. Copy the same pattern on the product side. Then write the number of atoms of each element. Lithium 1, hydrogen 3, phosphorus 1, oxygen is 4. On the product side, lithium is 3, hydrogen is 2, phosphorus is 1, and oxygen is 4. Then compare the number of atoms of each element on the reactant side and on the product side. We can see the differences from lithium and hydrogen only. Phosphorus and oxygen both have the same number of atoms on the reactant side and on the product side. Let us first manipulate lithium. Since lithium on the reactant side is 1 and on the product side is 3, we write 3 in front of lithium, making the number of lithium atoms in the reactant side equal to 3. Then next, let's manipulate hydrogen. Hydrogen on the reactant side is 3 and on the product side is 2. There are 2 ways in balancing the number of hydrogens. As we can see, we can multiply the hydrogen on the product side by a fraction to make the number of hydrogen on the product side equal to 3. We are going to multiply 3 halves. Why did we multiply 3 halves? Because 3 halves times 2 is equal to 3. In this case, the whole equation is already balanced, but we want to avoid fractions as coefficients. Therefore, to make all the coefficients a whole number, we will multiply all the components of this chemical equation by the denominator of the fraction, which is equal to 2. Therefore, we will multiply the whole equation by 2. By doing so, we'll have 6, 2, 3, and 2. Lithium will be equal to 6, hydrogen will be equal to 6, phosphorus will be equal to 2, oxygen will be equal to 8 on the reactant side, and on the product side, lithium will be equal to 6, hydrogen will be equal to 6, phosphorus will be equal to 2, and oxygen will be equal to 8. Comparing each element on the reactant side and on the product side, lithium both 6, hydrogen both 6, phosphorus both 2, oxygen both 8. Let us just rewrite the coefficients to make a clearer balanced chemical equation. 6, 2, 3, 2. This is the balanced chemical equation. Next problem, separate the reactant side from the product side. List all the elements, iron, chlorine, magnesium, oxygen. Copy the pattern on the product side. Then write the initial number of atoms on the reactant side and on the product side. Iron 1, chlorine 3, magnesium 1, and oxygen 1. On the product side, iron 2, chlorine 2, magnesium 1, and oxygen 3. Then, let's compare the number of atoms on the reactant side and on the product side of each element and start manipulating. Iron is 1 on the reactant, 2 on the product, chlorine 3 on the reactant, 2 on the product, magnesium both 1, oxygen 1 on the reactant, 3 on the product side. Let us first manipulate the number of atoms of iron. Since iron is 1 on the reactant side and 2 on the product side, we write 2 in front of FeCl3. By doing so, here are the changes. Iron is now 2, chlorine is now 6. So iron is already balanced. Now let's check chlorine. Chlorine is 6 on the reactant side and 2 on the product side. Therefore, let's manipulate the number of chlorines. So since we have lesser number on the product side, we manipulate the product side. We write 3 in front of MgCl2 to make the number of atoms of chlorine equal to 6. Chlorine now is equal to 6. Magnesium also changes. Magnesium is now 3. Chlorine is now balanced. Let's check magnesium. Magnesium on the reactant side is 1 and on the product side is 3. Therefore, we write 3 in front of MgO. Mg now becomes 3 and oxygen becomes 3. Then check oxygen. Oxygen on the reactant side and on the product side both have 3 number of atoms. Let's recheck each element on the reactant side and on the product side to make sure that they are equal. Iron 2 on both sides, chlorine 6 on both sides, magnesium 3 on both sides, and oxygen 3 on both sides. Therefore, this is the balanced chemical equation. Last problem, same process, separate the reactant from the product side, list all the elements on the reactant side and on the product side. Aluminum, sulfur, oxygen, calcium, chlorine. Copy the same pattern on the product side, aluminum, sulfur, oxygen, calcium, and chlorine. Then write the number of atoms of each element on the reactant side and on the product side. Aluminum is 2, sulfur is 3, because this subscript outside the parenthesis indicates that each element inside the parenthesis will be multiplied by 3. Therefore, sulfur is 3, oxygen will be 3 times 4, which is 12, calcium is 1, chlorine is 2. On the product side, aluminum is 1, sulfur is 1, oxygen is 4, calcium is 1, and chlorine is equal to 3. Compare the number of atoms of each element on the reactant side and on the product side. Aluminum 2 on the reactant, 1 on the product, sulfur 3 on the reactant, 1 on the product, oxygen 12, 4 on the product, calcium both 1, chlorine 2 on the reactant, and 3 on the product side. Let's start with aluminum. Since aluminum on the reactant side is 2 and on the product side is 1, we write 2 in front of AlCl3. Therefore, aluminum is now 2 and chlorine is now 6. Then check sulfur. Sulfur on the reactant side is 3 and on the product is 1. Therefore, we write 3 in front of calcium sulfate or CaSO4. Sulfur now is 3, oxygen is now 12, and calcium is now 3. Then check oxygen. Oxygen on the reactant side and on the product side both have 12 number of atoms. Move on to the next element, which is calcium. Calcium on the reactant side is 1 and on the product side is 3. Therefore, we write 3 in front of calcium chloride. Calcium now becomes 3 and chlorine becomes 6. Then check chlorine. Chlorine on the reactant side and on the product side is both 6. Let's recheck the number of atoms of each element on the reactant side and on the product side to make sure that the chemical equation is already balanced. Aluminum on the reactant side is 2 and on the product side is 2. Sulfur is 3 on the reactant, 3 on the product. Oxygen 12 on the reactant, 12 on the product. Calcium is 3 on the reactant and 3 on the product. And chlorine is 6 on the reactant and 6 on the product. Therefore, this is the balanced chemical equation. That's it for this video, guys. I hope you learned something. Specifically, I hope you learned how to balance a chemical equation. If you find this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and comment down below the things you want me to teach you next. And also don't forget to share this video and subscribe to my channel and click the notification bell button so you get notified whenever I upload a new video. And as always, don't forget to keep on smiling. Bye.